You want views, don't get me wrong, but this is bigger than just you making a video. There is someone that's gonna see this video that's gonna have major impact on their lives.
No matter if you have the experience or if you don't, just document what you're doing because you're able to create relationships with many people as opposed to just the one person.
What do you consider is like the most important principle for a successful business to scale?
I would say the most important principle.
Welcome back to another episode of the Wealthy Creator Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Berry, and today I have my guy with me. He's a part of, let me not say a part of, let me come correct. He is the COO of Pineda Company, overseeing all of the branded, that kind of branch off of the company with all of the wealthy brands. He's led multiple business to six-figure and seven-figure earnings.
And eight figures.
And eight-figure earnings. Okay, flex on him. He's also the host of the Wealthy Business Podcast, which is a part of the Wealthy Network here to go along with the Wealthy Way. I got none other than Javi Chavez.
Happy to be here. It's exciting to be on another Wealthy podcast. If you guys aren't following, I already got a call to action. If you guys aren't following Wealthy Business, you got any interest in business, entrepreneurship, got some great guests over there. Justin's going to be on there soon too. So yeah, man, I'm excited.
Awesome, man. I'm glad you were able to come. And that's just like a businessman to lead with a call to action, right?
Yep.
Now, man, again, I'm super glad that we got this opportunity. We've been talking about it forever. But I think this episode specifically, most of my audience is used to hearing about content and the creation. I want to dig into business because you are of the Wealthy Business brand. But I also, people don't know, dude. Like, they don't know that you got some content creation even before you were a part of all of this.
It's true.
I think you came in with a good following on TikTok. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. So all the way back 2020, like a lot of people, I was just scrolling. I didn't even have downloaded TikTok until probably like April. I resisted for a while. Okay. Girl I was dating at the time, she's like, yeah, you got to get on TikTok. Like, it's funny. Like, I want to send you videos. And I was like, all right. And then that's actually how I found Ryan. Right. Okay. So I found Ryan on TikTok, like summertime. And then I joined Wealthy Investor or Future Flipper at the time.
Yeah.
And the very first thing he says, man, you got to start creating content. You got to start putting stuff out there. And I was super reluctant. I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't have any experience. I don't. Like, what am I going to talk about? And then Ryan was like, talk about your journey. Right. So I was just documenting like the process of getting deals, right? Okay. So like I was posting, and this is illegal now, but like I was posting the recorded calls or like me talking to sellers on TikTok. I was posting like sales tips and a bunch of stuff, and like it caught traction. So yeah, like I think you mentioned I got like 23,000, and the majority of that I came in the first, probably 6 months to a year of me putting out content because it was authentic, I think.
Yeah.
And it catered to the demographic on TikTok. So it was all about like me getting my first few deals, me like growing. So they were able to see like, hey, this is how you start, right? And I think part of my content doesn't do as well as it used to on TikTok. And I think partially because number one, I'm posting a lot of like really produced pieces of content. And I think I lost kind of the connection where I'm now posting content about me being, running businesses versus like the tips. So I've actually posted more of like, hey, like if you're sales tips and stuff like that, and those are catching traction again. So I'm getting back to like the roots, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's good because, one of the things I always kind of teach a wealthy creator is that you have to have a good mix of both, right? It's not good to have everything overproduced. Don't go look at my Instagram because everything's overproduced.
Yeah.
But it's not the best thing to have that. It's good to have a good mix of raw and authentic kind of cell phone footage, organic, and then also mix that in with some really produced things as well because I think there's commonality in both, right? Some people love to see that good image, that perfect image, that high quality audio and all those things that you would get from like a podcast.
For sure.
And then there's other individuals that just kind of want the raw you every day. And there's are two different types of people. Some of those are supporters of the business and some of those are just a fan of yours, right? And I think early on, the reason why you grew early is because people were just becoming a fan of who Javi was as the person. And obviously, those type of like early stages are way more relatable than the successful stage that you've seen now. There aren't many people that can manage and scale and help build, 8-figure businesses. So there's something to that. And anybody that's listening and watching, they should think about that with their content specifically. A lot of people wait until they believe that they have the authority to post something.
I
Right?
agree.
They don't start documenting until until they have seen some success, rather than documenting earlier when you're just getting started and when you're just seeing, with no results.
Totally. Yeah, I think when I talk to the wealthy creators, they say the same thing a lot, right? I don't have any experience. Dude, just put out content and document it, because that's going to be valuable for people too. And one thing that I'm trying to focus on as well, like I'll kind of finish the story, then I'll get back to what I was about to say. But, so I started putting out content, started doing a lot. Then once I started working for Ryan, it's funny, I stopped making content because I kind of ran into an identity crisis, because a lot of my content was around real estate and I wasn't doing real estate anymore.
Right.
And I really wasn't selling anymore either, because that was what my content was. It was a mix of like sales tips and then like my real estate journey / like, hey, this is how you get a contract, negotiate with contractors, whatever, right? So I stopped posting, and then I kind of lost a lot of the steam too. So the other lesson is you just keep putting out content no matter what. So it's been an uphill battle now just to like get back into it. But obviously now that I have the podcast and stuff, it's gotten a lot easier. But yeah, I think also understanding who your demographic is, right? That was the other thing. I went from this really big following of all younger entrepreneurs and people who like wanted to get into that space. Then I started putting out content about like business and operations.
Yeah.
That was just there was a disconnect there. So now that I've gotten back to it's still highly produced, but still even the videos that are like, hey, if you're just trying to get your first deal, do this. People are starting to resonate with that a lot more.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think kudos to you for recognizing it, right? Like that's a lot of people struggle. They struggle with recognizing who the audience actually is. Sometimes it's not who you want it to be.
I know.
Right? And you almost have to build that for yourself, right? Like I always tell people, the reason what makes Ryan's audience so impactful is that they've almost been trained to become a part of the community.
Yes.
Right? Everything is leading to you somehow joining a program or coming to an event or, in some way, right? There's always an actionable step that you should take in order to actually achieve what you want to and benefit from the information that's being given. And so knowing the audience does help that, because now we know exactly who to target and what to tell them.
Yep.
Right? And so it's good that you recognize that. Tell me a little bit about your process with creating, right? Like I think everybody has something different, right? Tell me what you do, that may be unique to you, that when you start your creation process.
So lately, and well, actually, I'll go to the very beginning. Like I mentioned earlier, it was just documenting what I was doing, right? And it was a lot of testing too. But like I was editing all the videos, and I still do that with some of the videos, like the selfie type style stuff, and I'll do it all in. It used to be on TikTok. Now I use CapCut, but I'll sit there and I'll go 4 or 5 different takes with a bunch of different hooks. And then as I'm making the video, I'll actually think, I'm like, what, this is probably a better hook. And then so I'll film a second part. And then once I'm editing, I'll delete that. So like I create the hook first, which I know sometimes we don't coach that, or we teach people to like film the video and then create the hooks. And it kind of ends up happening that way anyway. But like I'll start with the hook, and then I'll go into like the actual value, and then I'll have some sort of call to. I've had the same call to action since like the very beginning. I was like, if you're getting some value, shoot me a follow. I'll see you soon. It was like the same thing I said on like all my videos. I still say it to this day. And like it was good, and I think it works. But anyway, like as far as like the content creation process, it's what's going on in my life, or like what are things that I've struggled with, right? So some of my best performing videos were like, hey man, like I literally got off a sales call. I was like, what went well on that sales call? And then I'm like, oh, like this phrase. I'm like, so that was one of my hooks. I'm like, this phrase just helped me close 2 software deals today, right? And then got into like the values. So I think for anybody who's trying to think about what to talk about, it's like, dude, like what do I do on a daily basis that people are going to get value from, right? And for me, I'm lucky now that I'm back in the sales training space with like our team and stuff like that. So I'll just think about like what they're struggling with and like what I coached on today, and then I'll go make that a video. Yeah. Right. So that are things that frustrate me. Like, bro, I see salespeople make the same mistakes. Don't make these, right? So that's my hook. Yeah.
No, I mean, like again, you're making things catered to you anyway, and so it's going to convert because it comes off super authentic on the video, right? You see so many times where people just aren't themselves on video. And I can tell you, Javi is who he is in person, exactly who you're going to see, just because that's your expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And I always believe, like, I'm a firm believer of when you talk in front of a video or in front of a camera or in front of people, talk about what you know. Do not get up there talking about things that you don't know about, because it can read. It's very clear in that video, and people do read through that. Yeah, man, that's awesome. I can tell you this, and we're going to get into it a little more, but for 2024, I'm extremely excited that with all of the changes and shifts that are happening within the company, a lot of what is happening is people going back to what they were best at in the first place.
I agree. Yep.
Right. You came in and you kind of start leading that sales area, and now you're kind of coming back into that. I'm watching you guys hire every day. So if you're looking for a sales opportunity,
go to www.pinedaco.com. Oh no, actually www.pineda.co.
Yep. Hit them up, because I mean, like you said, today, how many people started today?
We had 3 people start today. We got 7 starting on the 2nd. And one of the things I'm the most excited about is we are getting so systematized with the onboarding process. One of the biggest issues or just challenges that we've had is we'll bring somebody on, like, hey, here's some recorded calls, let's see what you got. Right. And now we're doing our best to give the people we hire every opportunity possible to come in, do well, and succeed. And if they do not succeed, it's no longer, I can look and say, hey, I did everything I did for that person. And again, I know this is a creator podcast, so I won't spend too much time on it. But this is also a good lesson for if you're hiring editors, if you're hiring whoever, be clear with what directions you want, right? Especially with these VAs that you're bringing on board. Be extremely clear with hey, this is what I want my videos to look like. This is what I expect. And because if you don't do that and then you get a bad product in return, it's your fault.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's across the board. That goes for every situation, right? You want to set the person up for success.
100%.
A lot of times people are setting it up for failure, especially when it comes to media and content, right? When I coach, I tell these individuals, especially if they have their own team, I go, the closer that you all can bond together, right? The more that the videographer or the editor understands your vision, understands the goal of the company, and then begins to actually buy in the company, right? That's always my goal when I get new people in, or when we're in that process of onboarding, is to get people to understand that this is bigger than just you making a video. It's just bigger than you just editing text on screens, right? There is someone that's going to see this video that you produce, that you helped to produce, that's going to have major impact on their lives and their families' lives, right? So once they start to buy into that and you actually set them up with all the systems and strategies that they need to be successful, you'll see wins, right? You'll see wins across the board. So you're 1,000% right. This is what makes a good COO too, right? This is what makes that person.
And it comes from a lot of trial and error. But yeah, so to your point, right? So now what we start, so we made this whole employee handbook thing, right? And so the very first thing is our core values and how they relate to their specific role, right? So I took our 5 core values, and then I added a little blurb for how it relates to them in sales, right? And then so I'm going to start doing that for all of our new hires and stuff like that. But like you said, it starts with a vision. So that way people understand why we're here, what we're doing. And then we get into the actual process stuff. And last thing that I'll say is you got to figure out how to close the feedback loop as quickly as possible, right? So once basically process starts, and then how quickly can we get the feedback back to the person in charge? So me or Justin or whoever's managing them. So that way we can improve their product, their process as quick, very, very quick. What usually happens is it's a long feedback loop. So by the time you get the video back, or by the time there's an issue, they've already made the mistake 10 different times, right? So creating ways that you can see hey, if a video gets filmed in a certain type of way, how quickly can we fix it and make it better? I think is super important too, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you talked a little bit about the core values of the company, and I want to get into that a little bit. I look those core values. So for those that don't understand what we mean when we say that, because I know we use that a lot, and not a lot of brands and companies have created that for themselves. Yeah, which I believe every company should.
And every big company and every big brand has them. So you can steal some of ours. Faith is our number one. You got to believe in the mission, right? We're doing a lot of big things. How crazy is it that 2-3 months ago, we're hey, we're going to start 5 podcasts, right? All right, let's go do it, right? With people who don't have traditional podcast experience,
Yeah,
right? Like,
for sure.
If you would have told
Sorry,
me,
you all.
I know, but hey, we're crushing it,
It's
right?
working.
I mean,
It's
we're
working.
doing it, right? And so you got to have faith in the mission, have faith in the people and the company. And if you don't have that, then all the other core values don't even matter.
Yeah. And core values are just foundational principles.
For sure.
Right. And I consider foundational principles just a compass of our uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is how we work our way through anything that we're uncertain about. We stick to these principles, and essentially everything will work itself out. Right. Like, to me, it just anchors our identity. Right.
I agree.
You can't argue when you come in and you spend time with us, when you get on these calls with us, when you actually get time spent and time bought in, even if you're just listening to the podcast and taking the content, there's no argument that we do stick by these core values and these principles. And so that's how I see it. What do you consider is like the most important principle for a successful business to scale?
Oh, that is such a hard question. I would say the most important principle, I mean, let me backtrack actually. It's just finding people who align with your core values. I think so we have ours, train daily, play fair, no ego, serve others. And so those are like what we measure our team and our people against, right? There are other companies that are wildly successful that have probably the exact opposite core values, right? It's just the way I look at a business is it's almost like, it's like an organism. It's like a living, breathing thing, right? So just finding people and other things that align with your core values. So I think it's building a team of like-minded people who you can show up and achieve a common goal with every single day, right?
Yeah.
And then, so there's no one right way to run a business. That's what I've learned. I've seen a lot of people who have probably shady core values by our standards that are extremely successful, right? So it's just finding people who, and I hope those are none of the people listening.
Yeah,
but
they're not in the community.
Yeah, they're not in the community. So you're not here. You're in good company. But it's finding a team that you can be around on a day-to-day basis that's all motivated towards a common goal. I think if I look at every successful business, they have that one principle.
Yeah. What do you say though? For the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to get into actually scaling a business because that is what you do. For an entrepreneur, right? What type of mind shifts need to take place? Kind of related to core values and things like that for it to be successful.
So this is what I tell. This actually might be in the WealthCon presentation, right? But the thing that I see a lot with entrepreneurs and mainly solopreneurs, are they work harder for their boss or their employer than they do for themselves, right? So they have lower standards for themselves than they do the company that they work for, right? So number one is develop your core values and develop what your standard of work is, and then stick to that. That's what's going to make you very successful. And then when you start bringing employees on, your employees will either rise or fall to your standard.
That's good.
Right? And so whatever your standard is and whatever you allow for yourself is also what you're going to allow for your employees, right? So that's going to be the biggest thing for any organization. And this is kind of what we had to do just recently in our own company, right? We really took a look in the mirror and we're like, what are we allowing with some of these people? And that's where, Ryan's going to tell you on stage, I'll tell you here, we went through a big reset recently where a lot of people left. And we didn't fire very many. We fired a couple, but we didn't fire very many. But it's because we changed our standard. And we raised the standard, and the people who didn't like the new standard or the new responsibilities, they left. And so anyway, I think the biggest principle that I can see for successful organizations and that I try to embody is adhere to my standard every single time. And if somebody isn't meeting that standard, we're going to help them correct it, or they're not going to work here.
Yeah, they're not a fit. Yeah. So and it's funny, 2 years ago, Ryan told me not everybody's going to be with us as we grow. And he said that to me, and it was funny because it wasn't random, but it was I was kind of experiencing my first firing.
Ooh, yeah.
Right? It's brutal, right? Like I don't
It
know,
is.
if you're out there, you're listening, and you've gone through that for the first time, you got to be cold to not feel anything in that
For
moment,
sure.
right? Like in my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, like they have kids and their families, and this is taking everything, like you know what I mean. And I wasn't even aware that they knew it was coming, right? But it was like he told me, he was like, show me like where the hole is and what we're trying to do. And I showed it to him, and we broke it down, and we went through it. We figured out how to fix it and what areas, and it all led to something that was just one common thing between all of the issues. And so hearing him say, not everybody's meant to go with you, and not everybody will be here as we grow, was like, man, like you're 1000% right. Some people just can't fully buy into what that change or what is needed to happen in order to go to the next level.
100%.
And I think that was a lot of what 2023 showed us, as a company. And it wasn't everybody, but it was a good portion of individuals. Building a team, though, right? Building a strong team is something that you play a major role in here at the company. How do you find like the right type of talent and the right, and the good employees of the
core values?
But
yeah, there's more to it. But last thing I'll say about your point is, dude, what got you here is not going to get you there, right? And some people who might have been key players, and this happens with all businesses, by the way. So you have your big startups, your Facebooks, all these other tech companies.
Yeah.
They go through different rounds of funding. Got the Series A, B, C. This is like when they're getting a bunch of venture capital money. And some operators or some employees, like they're just really good in the Series A stage, or they're good when it's like a Series D or like a public company, right? Because they're better at systems, processes, right? So there are certain people that are going to get you to a level, and then either the job role is going to change, the demands of the company are going to change, and that's okay. But you're going to have to part ways with those people. But yeah, firing is the worst part of the whole job, man.
Yeah,
I fired a lot of people this year, and it never gets easier in my eyes, at least.
No, for sure.
But to your point about building a team, and so yeah, the way we do it is, number one, core values, we measure against those, and then I really need to see, depending on what role we're hiring for, like I need to see some ability in that role, right? I need to see, and this is something that we tell all of our like business students is do some sort of skills assessment, some sort of mock test, right? So for you guys with your editors, you better see some past work, right? You better see some videographers, like you better see whatever their camera work is. We do the same thing for sales, right? So we do like a mock call with the people. We're like, hey, I'll give you my script, ring, hello. And like, it feels awkward and it's kind of like clunky, but I've done this for other organizations that I used to work for back in the day, where I would do a mock demo where I'd be on a computer and I'd show them and do it all. If you're hiring an admin, send them some data to go put in Excel. Like no matter what, you need to do some sort of skills assessment.
Yeah.
Because that's going to help you filter out a lot of people.
Are we beyond the time of resumes?
I mean, I still like to see a resume because it shows they care.
Okay.
But it's not like a big disqualifier. But I would agree. I think depending on the job.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I was going through college. They told you resume was like make or break on whether or not you get that call in.
Yeah. I think your social media is your resume now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So people putting out content, it's a lot easier for me to see like what they're all about and what their skill level is, right? So I think it's important to be putting out content because that is your resume. But yeah, I know in college, like I mean, even for me, like I think all my jobs I had some sort of. This is the only job I didn't have a resume for.
Right. I'm living in a bubble now. Like, you don't need a resume to come here.
Ryan didn't care about my resume. I mean, he knew my resume because number one, he saw me on social. We had built a relationship, and that's what building a brand allows you to do. You're able to create relationships with many people as opposed to just the one person. So I think there's big value in your content.
Yeah, and I just want to make this point too for those that don't feel like they necessarily are a brand. What you just heard him say is that he checks your social media to go along with whatever resume. You can send in the greatest resume. I'm still going to look you up, right? And that's everybody. I know everybody does that. And so no matter what you believe, whether or not it's a product behind your name, you are a brand.
100%. Yeah, and if you don't have a brand, your brand's being made for you, right? And you have a brand of not having a brand. Right. So I agree 100%. And I think with the way things are rolling, like everybody needs to be at least have some sort of content on social. You don't need to be producing videos. If you're watching this podcast, you probably want to, or you are.
Yeah.
But that's why LinkedIn's important. That's where like all these other social media sites are important as well. So I agree 100%.
Absolutely. When it comes to business, I want to get into how you identify opportunity for growth.
So are you talking about when it comes to like talent or
just companies?
Just like, companies?
Yeah. So like this year we're entering into a new phase of the company. How are you all going about identifying the opportunities for real growth in the company?
I think we look at demand, right? So for example, the way Creator got its start was Ryan kept on getting questions like, hey, like, how do you coach on social media? Like, how can I grow my brand, right? And then same thing that we're doing right now with Wealthy Business. We're getting more and more demand based, like, not everybody wants real estate education anymore. So we're like, okay, like this is like, even our last WealthCon was that way. We had so many people like, I'm not super interested in real estate, but I want to get coached on business.
Yeah. Right.
So one of our Actually, I won't even say it. But we got some surprises at WealthCon to identify that, right? So that's kind of step one is like, is the demand there? And then are we capable of doing it, right? And so we've had the Wealthy Business coaching program for the last like 6-7 months. Now we're finally in a place that we feel, all right, we're ready to kind of take this to the next level and start really marketing for it and all that. And then the next thing is, all right, well, do the numbers make sense, right? Because we can project it and we can make a little business plan and we can be like, okay, well, if we sell 100 people at 5K, we're going to make this much money and we're going to crush it, right? Then once we actually get punched in the mouth a little bit and we're in the ring, like, okay, well, how does it actually shake out? So that's the other aspect of it too. And then it's like, okay, what do our marketing costs look like, and all the actual business stuff. So to answer your question directly about like how do I find like opportunity, it's like, all right, are there any chinks in what we're already doing, or kinks in what we're doing? Meaning, like, is our sales process good? Is our marketing good? Is our cost per lead good? And if all those things are good, and they're like, okay, well, like, can we put more gas on the fire?
Right.
And that's where I'm really excited for with 2024. And that's why we're hiring so many people. It's because, all right, we figured out our marketing costs. Ryan's been crushing it on social for a long time. And we figured out, okay, our cost per lead's really low. Our sales, our SDRs, our appointment setters, they're getting really good. Our closers are getting better. Like, all right, so what's the bottleneck right now? Like, it's marketing. So like we're just about to throw a bunch of actually it's sales. We need more salespeople to handle the leads, because if we just pay more money in leads, we don't have the sales team to close on it. So that's how we identify it. We just look at every process in the business and say, okay, this looks good, this isn't breaking. This looks good, this isn't breaking. All right, well, now let's go get more leads, more salespeople, and run it till it breaks.
How important is identifying what other business owners and creators are doing play a role in?
So it was, so there's two sides of this, right? So 2023 was the year of taking other people's advice.
Okay.
We worked with, I think, 4 different agencies for various different things on the marketing side. The good and the bad of Ryan having a massive podcast with all the business people is we get a lot of content and a lot of advice from a lot of different people. And at the time, we think it's good advice. Like, oh, these guys are crushing it doing this. These guys are crushing it doing that. One of Brian's favorite things to say now is, show me your stripe.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, no, like I really want to see like what these guys are actually doing.
It all sounds good. Everything sounds good.
And it can work to a point, but then we towards the end of the year, we really looked around and we're like, we are in the top 1% of info companies.
Yeah.
Right? Like in education, it's Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Dean Graziosi, maybe like what's the other guy? Robert Kiyosaki. Like those are like the big legacy brands. Right. And then you got everybody else. I mean, Ryan was talking about it yesterday. We've been in the info space for 7 years.
Yeah.
And we've been on social media for like a shorter period of time. But so if we really look at it, there's very few companies that are doing it at our level.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we taking advice from these guys who like they're doing okay in their own right? So I don't want to take anything away from them.
Mm-hmm.
But why are we taking advice from these guys versus all the experience that we've created and just drawing our own conclusions?
Yeah.
So that's what 2024 is. 2024 is going to be the year of us like listening to ourselves, and we'll see where the chips lie.
Yeah. And I think too, it's funny, like it's the gift and curse of Ryan Pineda because he's willing to try anything.
100%.
Right? Like if he sees something and it starts to make sense to him, he's gonna try it. Right. And so that is the gift, because when he tries things and it works, it's great. Right. And then the curse is, everybody that comes in and teaches something new, we might be trying and changing and shifting
100%
in the next week. And he's not one of those guys that like takes time to make the shift either. He's like, all right, we're gonna do this. Right. And
that's why it comes back to the feedback loop.
Yeah.
Right. So what we did previously was, all right, we're gonna test it, and we didn't have enough feedback. Or it took too long to get the feedback. And then it was like a month later, and we're like, okay, well, that didn't work. So what I've really tried to focus on is like really get dialing in, like if we make a change, what are the KPIs or what are the things that I need to look at to see whether or not it's working very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, with being here, we pivot a lot. But hopefully in 2024, we've really laid out a plan, and hopefully we stick to it. Right? And there'll always be small deviations and changes, but in terms of like the team structure and what we're really focused on, I think we have a pretty good idea. So we'll see.
That's awesome to hear from me too, man. That's awesome.
It ain't gonna change,
because I'm telling you, man. Like he texted me about 2 days ago, and we're going over budget for content and media, and he's like, "Well, it just looks like your actual role is." Director of media for Pineda Company.
Yeah.
And I go, this is like the 5th title I've had in 3 years. Nothing really changes, like for me specifically, because it's just overseeing everything and making sure stuff is getting done. But it's funny because, like as we keep growing, things start to shift, and then you start to get more and more on the plate, and so titles do change. But it's just funny because I'm like, this is happening. Like we do this all the time.
I know.
Right? But I think that is also it's important to recognize that, especially for, and I'm not even talking about myself, but other individuals that have made themselves available, because you're only as good as available you are, right? And so like making themselves available to those shifts and those changes, right? Like that's what makes it really powerful. Like you're able to take on more, you're almost increasing your capacity at that point. And they continue to build and grow, and we're just learning as we go. But as we're going, we're seeing significant growth in every area.
100%. And one of the biggest things that I like, it's funny. When I played like high school football, it was like a little prayer. But the little thing that I remember was an opportunity to equal our strides, and that's the same thing that we have here, man. Like it's an opportunity to however far you want to take it. Yeah, there'll be a spot for you. Yeah, and as long as you're capable and qualified and all the other stuff too. But that equals your strides. So that's what I love about working here, and just the culture that we've created. If you want to take on more, be my guest, and we'll let you go crush it, right? And like you said, things shift and things change, but again, it's just because we're growing, and there have been things that you used to do that you don't do anymore, right? So yeah, you do get more on your plate, but there are things that like you've dished off as well, which is helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So let's get into planning a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
All right, let's get into some of that. You spoke about you all having a plan for 2024. What key elements go into strategic planning? That will help.
Yeah, I think to be transparent too, this is probably our weakest spot. Okay, right? Because for us, but we're doers, we're action, like that, and the plan shifts and changes, right? But what I think is very important with any plan is just a clear vision. Right. And a vision that everybody can get behind and that your team can see themselves in. Right. Because one thing that Ryan does extremely well is he casts a big enough vision that high level people like you, myself, all the other leaders, and even just, the employees all the employees here, they can see whatever their personal goals are for right now being achieved in this organization. Right. So that's step one in just creating a plan, is just having a big enough vision that everybody can get behind. Next, next thing that we look at is just past results, right? Like what did this last year do, and why didn't we achieve the goals, or if we did achieve the goals, like were our goals too small, right? So like taking a look at that, and then in the like how we planned for this year, it's like, okay, what's like the moonshot goal, right? Like what's like if everything went right, and even if everything went right, and like what's our goal?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'll tell you guys. So we want to do 50 million next year across like everything.
Okay.
The long term, the 5-year plan's 100 million.
Gotcha.
Right. And hopefully we do it sooner. But so for next year, like if everything went right, it's 50 million across all the businesses. Then like, okay, so 50 million is the goal. How do we achieve that for each individual company? Right. And then so, okay, we need to sell this. We do like what? I think it's like 4.15 million every single month. And obviously it's not going to happen next month. So it's going to slowly grow to that. So if we do that, how do we achieve it? All right, well, obviously, so sales needs to be dialed. We need marketing to be dialed. We need fulfillment to do X. We need to handle this many students. So then we start projecting. And the technical term for it's a performa, right? So we create a performa like, okay, we need for every 100 leads, we need this many salespeople. We need this many back-end people to handle the students. And like, what does it look like long-term, right? So that's the nuts and bolts of like how to create a plan. And I can keep going.
And you all, just so you all know, like, he's simplifying everything. You can get a lot of this information in full in the Wealthy Business Program, or even by following him in his podcast.
For sure. Yeah. And it's our most detailed curriculum. And we have a whole segment on this. Like there's like, it's 113 pages that we go over every single week. But anyway, as far as the like performer that you're going to build, again, to put it simply because it's not everybody's building the businesses that we're at, right? Have the vision, create a like moonshot goal, and then really just reverse engineer it, right? So if you know that for you creators, if you're trying to bring on clients or whatever, let's say your goal is 100K a year, right? Like how many clients do I need to bring on, and what does that service look like, and can I handle it, and then how do I go get those clients? Like that's the simple way to go build your plan for the year.
And how do you all, or how would you like suggest people to prioritize what growth strategy they should focus on first or last? Like you had, like you spoke about, like you got product development, you got sales, you got like, how would you prioritize which ones to focus?
Marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing is number one, man. So many people can sell, and I mean, marketing trumps sales, no matter what. Even Grant Cardone, the sales guy, says marketing trumps sales, because if you have an influx of leads coming in, you don't need to be a good salesperson. You don't need to be like this master closer. You just have leads and people who want to reach out to you and who are willing to do business with you because they already know, like, and trust you, right? So the most important thing, and I'm not just saying this because we're on the podcast, it's like this is the most important thing for any business, is marketing. Yeah. So many smart people create these crazy tech softwares and all this stuff, and they go die because they don't know how to market effectively, right? So if I'm really just sitting and thinking about how to make 2024 my best year, or how, like, what I should focus on, it's how do I market well? And then most importantly, though, to follow that up is you do need to have a good product, because eventually people are going to, if your product isn't good, then no one's going to do business with you, right? So that's number two. So if I had to break it down, I would focus 80% of my time on marketing. I would 80% of my time on marketing. I would focus probably 15% of my time on making sure my product's really, really good. And the other 5% would be sales skills, talking to people.
Wow. I didn't think you were going to say sales. Like, I thought sales was going to be like the one or two in that process.
Once you're in, marketing makes sales really easy.
Gotcha.
The big problem is that a lot of people aren't good at marketing and don't take the time to get good at marketing. So they're like, okay, I'm going to go figure out sales, and I'm going to start cold calling people, and I'm going to start DMing people online, which is also a form of marketing, by the way, is,
cold calling.
Yeah, cold calling, and then messaging people, like, because I'm sure like a lot of you guys who are creating content, you get DMs all the time from people like, hey, I'll edit your videos, or hey, like I get 2 to 3 a day, right? That's how they market. That's their thing, right? So, which is a form of sale, which is kind of gray area between sales and marketing. There's some overlap.
Yeah.
But I think if you figure out marketing, your sales get so much easier. So, coming from a sales guy, I think sales is important, but that can maximize like what you're already doing on the marketing side. But not everyone's like there's no natural salesperson, but some people are better at it than others, and it takes practice. So I'd rather spend all my time on marketing because even the best salesperson gets tapped out, right? And that's also why, like, our marketing, like, if I could think about it, it's like a fire hose that we have shut down to a drip right now because we don't have enough salespeople. So sales is always going to be the bottleneck, and that's why we need to hire more of these salespeople to handle all the marketing that's coming in,
right?
Because we can't even do it right now.
Yeah. So essentially, it's no need to be concerned with sales, and if you have no leads.
Exactly.
All right. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. It makes total sense. Now, with all of the planning and all the preparation, how do you go about measuring the success of it?
I mean, so you have, they call them like KPIs, key process indicators, right? And so one of the biggest mistakes that business owners make is they wait until the bottom line, meaning like how much money came in this month, right? But in reality, there are a bunch of little things in your process that happen first that you should be looking at that will determine whether or not like you're going to hit your bottom line number. If you're waiting till the money in number, it's too late, right? Because it's a lagging metric or a lagging KPI, as they say, right? So basically, how you measure success is you look at every step of the process. To use content, for example, it's like, okay, when the content came in, how long did it take to get to the editor? How long did it take for it to go to the client? How long did it take to come back? To use sales, for an example, all right, so a lead comes in. How long does it take for the lead to get called? How many appointments get booked for our closers? What's our closers close ratio, right? So we're tracking every single one of those metrics. Gotcha. So we know, all right, if 10 leads came in and they didn't get hit until, like, let's say we don't have anybody working the weekend. They don't get hit till Monday. Well, that's a problem. So we got to solve that because that's going to hurt everything down the road too, right? And then how many appointments did our team book? We know that we have, I think it's 80 open slots every single day. So did our team book 80 appointments? If they didn't book the 80 appointments, we're not going to see the money come in. Yeah. Right. So it's just understanding each individual KPI.
Gotcha. Yeah, I went through a couple of our sessions with Gary Harper. Yeah. And it was my first time like really understanding how I can implement KPIs to what we do. Right. And I was like, man, we just make sure we get our stuff done.
Yeah,
like,
we get the content out.
Yeah. If the video goes out, we're good. But it made me think of ways to track and hold people accountable like that are on the team, right? So it's like, okay, if, and the way our setup is, if people are wondering, our main editors get paid per video, right? And what's cool about that is that it creates some type of competition between the two. Yep. Because as far as Ryan, he's locked in with an editor, Wealthy Investor, because these were the first two brands are locked into an editor. And then all the other wealthy brands is up for grabs, right? Whoever completes their task first can take the next one. And so it's essentially a situation where they can make as much as they're willing to work for. All right. And so it creates that competition. Now, what happens is, and this is when we first implemented this, what happened is that the editors came and they were doing really fast edits so that they can grab the next video. Right. Yeah. But then they weren't realizing that it was taking them longer because I'm sending 45 revisions back to them. Yeah. And now they got to keep doing this video over and over again, and they never get to that next one.
How'd you fix it?
So a way of fixing that is going, okay, you all, at this point, it looks like you all can't handle and I got to bring somebody else in. And I'm going to find the best. All right. And the guy that's coming in is going to be able to crush, and it's going to limit what you're able to kind of get from. And so then they kind of dial back. Everybody takes a deep breath, and it's not the hunger for the money, but instead it's the hunger for the good product.
That's good.
And so now it's like, okay, now I just need to implement the best product, because if I have no revisions on this video, I can just immediately go to the next one. Exactly. And so I started seeing that change and started seeing it develop, and I'm like, yeah, this is a good KPI, because now I can track how many videos they do in a month. I can track how many views those videos are getting.
And which editor is getting more views, right?
Exactly. And so it's more powerful. And with us, again, in this company, there's always room for opportunity and growth. And so I know that in that I'll be able to offer them something else if they are the better editor, if they are crushing it better. Like, it just makes everybody step their game up. In fact, when I got more involved in Pineda Media with the editing, the do it for you stuff, I had to actually kind of understand the VA situation, right? Because I'm not a fan of it. If I'm totally honest, I understand it from a business aspect, and truthfully, I wish I would have known about it when I was solo and doing my own retainers. but I'm not a fan of the quality.
Sure.
Right. And I understand that it takes training to get the quality that you want. And so these were all things that I was learning. Right. But I also knew that there are individuals that I'm within arm's length to that can crush this and get this done with a little bit of training.
Mhm.
Right. And so it's it's not any of the language barrier. It's all those things. And so I knew like, okay, he was like, all right, I need you to get more involved. And I'm like, okay, Ryan, but you got to let me do this. Like, let me just do this. Let me test it. Let me see what works. And so we started testing in-house editors, started trying to see how fast they can pick it up, right? And these guys picked it up in a matter of weeks.
And they're great.
And they're good. They are really good. Like they've done a lot of videos in the last 2 months. And so it's been awesome to kind of see. But I'm also want to get to the point of the technology, right? So we tested a lot of these AI softwares to try to improve it. Yeah, so there's a few of them that we really are big on. Opus is one of them. Opus allows you to cut those shorts from just a link. You can add a link from a video and it cuts you some shorts.
That's cool.
It still takes a really skilled editor to make those really good as far as the edit, because AI can't do it all. But it gives you a really quick shortcut to where you're trying to go.
Yeah, it speeds everything up because it gets like some decent value, and then you're able to,
Oh yeah, and all these updates that are happening with the softwares are great because they're allowing for more flexibility. So I can tell you when I first used the very first one, the captions that they gave you couldn't adjust at all. Right? All you can do is change the spelling, but it was all white text coming across. It just wasn't good. Like visibly it wasn't good, and it couldn't compete with those that were doing it organically and raw through their own through the Premiere or Final Cut. Now you can adjust everything.
That's cool.
And it also allowed me to not give the editors any excuse of why something isn't fixed. Right? Because I'm like, no. I don't he walked off screen, but you can follow because I know that it allows you to do that now. Right? So it's all those little small things. So Opus was one. CapCut became a really big friend of ours. It's funny too because coming from like the older school of editors and these guys that have been in it for a little while, we so big on like the professional level. Yeah. Right. So it's a fight against all that new stuff. Right. Like I remember when Canva came out, Canva's another one that we use big time. I was like, man, they're gonna get rid of Photoshop in a minute. Yeah. But it was limited. And as they keep updating, they keep giving you more and more features. And it's like, all right, it doesn't even make sense for me to go over there if it's gonna take me 20 minutes to do it over there and 5 to do it here. So these are all ways of like kind of implementing this tech into this process. But what's fun about it is I know that it's coming up like that for every aspect of the business. Tell me a little bit about how technology is going to impact the business in 2024.
Bro, I use ChatGPT and I've trained, so like all of our sales scripts go through ChatGPT, and it can overcome objections in Ryan's tone of voice.
Really?
Yeah, because
you trained it.
Yeah, and that's one thing like for anybody who isn't already doing it, use the same thread for all of your like related stuff. So I have like one sales training / like sales thread on ChatGPT. And yeah, so I basically like I've plugged in, the way I started was I plugged in all of our previous sales scripts. I like took some transcriptions of Ryan's calls, put it in there, and like just plugged it with a ton of information. And then Ryan recently was like, "Hey, like this is how I want like our sales structure to be." So then I plugged that in, and then I told it, "Hey, all right. So now that you have the framework and you know everything about and ChatGPT can browse the internet now.
Yeah.
So I sent it all of our wealthy investor sites, our Pineda Media sites, everything. Right. Yeah. So like has all the context. And then I was like, all right. So now that you have all this, create me a script using this framework. Wow. Did the whole thing, and then I was like, hey, so. What if somebody says, I want to talk to my wife? Like, say this in the tone of Ryan Pineda. And then it like did the whole thing. And like I sent it to Ryan and he's like, that's pretty close. That's pretty good. So yeah, I use, and obviously like it does still require like context from me to like come in and do it. But it speeds up the amount of time that I would have had to take to like really develop a script, to develop this, like all this stuff would have taken way longer.
Yeah.
So just on a transactional side, I use it for that. I know our email copywriter, she uses it for like a lot of her emails and stuff. So, but again, it's trained, right? So she's plugging in all of our previous emails. She's like, hey, like add add some more context here, right? So it's not just I think the thing that a lot of people make a mistake of doing with ChatGPT is they ask it one question and it comes back like AI,
Right.
and they quit, or they don't. They're like, oh, AI's dumb, right?
Yeah.
But you got to take the time to work with it and train it to what you want it to do. And the more you use it, the better it gets. And that's why you're the same thing you see with all these Opus and these other AI clips. Like, they're getting better at picking clips because they have all the data that they use from all the clips that they're consuming, and they're picking better clips now. So so that's the same thing that's happening with ChatGPT. So AI is scary, man.
Yeah, no, I've done several sessions, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to follow the pages, because there will be an episode released, if not already, on how to prompt. Right,
that's good,
and that's in every aspect of artificial intelligence. Like any software or anything that you're trying to use, chat, any of those, you have to be able to prompt well for it to 100%. Actually work for you. Because I think, like you just said, your copywriter is using it.
Yep.
Right. That's like, if you hear what you're actually saying, you're like, wow, like, okay, yep. I hired the copywriter to write copy, and she's using. So it is a tool. It's just a tool. Like, editors were concerned, like, oh man, this thing cut up a podcast in 2 minutes. Yeah, but make that your tool. It's still going to take a human, element. It doesn't completely remove us out of the process. It's just not that good yet.
Yeah,
now, and it may, but it's not yet.
But if you use the tool now, like, you as an editor, how many more clients can you take on?
Exactly.
How much more can you charge for your service? Like, you shouldn't be looking at AI as like someone that's going to take your job.
It's not a competitor.
It's not a competitor. It's a tool. Yeah. And for the people who, it might be a competitor for somebody who doesn't think that way.
Right.
Right. And it's just, but if you harness it and you use it for your business, dude, you're gonna come crush in 2024. So I think we're using AI just the simple that way. We use it for our Wealthy Deals software already, right? So we have AI that will tell you whether or not it's a good deal or not for like our real estate investing stuff, and so we give that to all of our students at Wealthy Investor.
Wow. It's a great tool to use.
It's great, yeah. So it's cool. Like it literally will give you a score telling you like, hey, is this a good wholesale deal? Is this a good flip deal? Or should you keep this as a rental? And it'll like score from 1 to 1,000. But yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Without going too far into that, tell me a little bit of how, like, obviously you just talked about with chat, you actually prompt it and make sure that it has the information that it needs. How does that software work in terms of
same way? So like, it takes into account like all the real estate data that's out there. And then it also takes into account the most common motivated seller things. So again, without getting into too much detail, people who are behind on their taxes, people who might have owned the property for like 30 plus years, people who have a lot of equity. So it takes into account all the things that, we've determined are signs of motivation to want to sell their house at a discount. Takes all that into account into like, and then it spits out a number, basically. So that's how it operates.
Gotcha.
And yeah, man, it's pretty sweet. We have a lot of our students who are getting deals, crushing it. So it's awesome to see.
Oh, that's tight.
Yeah.
Are there any other like resources or tools or technology that you're seeing?
Ryan loves Go High Level. That's like the one-stop shop for everything right now. It's super cheap. So we're also going to be rolling that out to like all of our creator students, all of our business students, all of our investor students. They're all going to get their own CRM.
Awesome.
So that's something that I'm really excited for in 2024. It can do it all. The reason why we started using it was it's a better ManyChat. So that was our first like AI software that we were using. It was an automation software, but and I'm sure you've probably talked about it on this podcast at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So it manages the DMs. So what Go High Level can do is you can just do it at like a way crazier pace, right? And then it's already and so Go High Level is our CRM. So we can manage all of Ryan's DMs into there, and then we spit it out to the sales team. So our sales team's working out of there. They have landing pages. It has like pretty much anything that you can think of. Go High Level does it. So we're putting everything in there. So that's something we're really excited about rolling out to everybody too. So Wealthy CRM is in the works.
Yes, sir. That's awesome. 2024 is going to be a big year. Again, stuff is getting dialed in, stuff is going. But I think with everything, there comes challenges. And to me, challenges are just stepping stones.
For sure.
Right? And in the long run, they just strengthen you. Right? So this is kind of a two-part question. What type of challenges are you seeing for the company in 2024? And then what type of challenges are you seeing for yourself?
For the company, we're in the stage of developing leaders now, right? For one area for growth for all of us is now, right? Like you're developing Austin into
Mhm.
like leading his team. I'm developing sales managers to lead their teams.
Mhm.
So how effective can we be when I'm no longer directly talking to the team?
Mhm.
When Brian or Ryan are no longer direct, like managing them directly,
Yeah.
right? As we continue to grow and scale, that's what, if I can think of like what my time is going to be spent doing the most, it's going to be that.
Mhm.
It's going to be developing other leaders,
Mhm.
so that way they can go out and crush it. Because we can only get so big with me or you or whoever having to manage the day to day,
Mhm.
right? So that's going to be one of the biggest challenges. Obviously, there are market economy challenges. I think we're going to be in for another recession type year.
Mhm.
However, I think we've adjusted for it, and we're in good spots, financially to go out and crush it, regardless of what the economic trends are. But I
Mhm.
think that's a big overarching thing. I think what I'm personally working on, it's similar to that. It's I gotta if I'm gonna train other leaders, my leadership has to get better.
Mhm.
Holding people more accountable, I think, and also really documenting and like ironing out all of our processes,
Yeah, yeah.
right? That's the biggest area for growth. And like we talked about, I think earlier in the podcast, the challenge is giving people the right frameworks and all the tools possible so that way they can go do their job well, so I can hold them accountable.
That's
Because
good.
I think one of the biggest things for this year for me, if I look back, was, is it me or is it the person? And
Mhm.
that was a question sometimes when I had to make some tough fires. I'm like, did I fail this person? Maybe. But
Mhm.
either way, they're failing in their role, so I still have to let them go.
Mhm.
So this might be selfish for my own conscience, but I want to be able to and say that like I did everything possible
Possible.
for that person before having to let them go and part ways.
Yeah, and I think it's the minority that you have to part with if you can succeed at doing that.
Exactly.
Right. And I feel the same way. I'm like,
Mhm.
I ask myself all the time, like, okay, this person isn't showing any signs of improvement.
Yeah.
What can I challenge them with
Yeah.
that will help that? And what can I tell them? What can I teach them that will help that? Right. Like
Mhm.
Austin, you mentioned Austin, and Austin's great. Like the 17-year-old kid who's just
Crushing
he's
it.
working in a business, right? Like
He's the boss baby.
yeah, he's the boss baby, right? And what one thing I love about working with him is that he understands where there's opportunity to grow,
Mhm.
and he takes advantage of that, right? It's like I don't like most 17-year-olds, you probably got to tell multiple times to clean their room, right? Like
Yeah.
simple things. With him, I know I can tell him once and he'll go try it. Even if he gets it wrong,
He'll
at least
do it.
at least he did it, right?
Mhm.
There was I was making fun of him yesterday because he had a video come out and in the frame you see the other camera. Right? It was a podcast. It was somebody's solo angle.
Oh
And you
man.
can see that. And I go, Austin, you're better than this.
Yeah.
I go, this is beneath you.
Mhm.
Right? But it's funny because I know he's never gonna do that again.
Mhm.
Right? Like he's not like I'm gonna have to ever say that again. No matter where he goes after this and beyond the Ryan Pineda community, he's never gonna make that mistake again. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you want to empower people, to be able to be the highest, and achieve their highest potential, right?
Yep.
And in doing that, you'll see like it's gonna make or break the person first. Like if they're not cut out for it, you're gonna know.
100%.
And if they are, they're gonna be around for the long haul and they're gonna really build, big things with you. So
Yeah. What do you think? For your 2024 predictions?
oh man. So 2024 for as a my branch of the company, the wealthy creator community is about to explode.
Mm-hmm.
I strongly believe that we're merging some things where I felt we always lacked in creator, right? A lot of it is just the personnel thing, like trying to do it all was kind of like,
Yeah.
it was kind of tough. But I think creator is going to explode, one, because people are finally understanding how important it is not to just make content, but make content that can convert into dollar signs
For
and you can
sure.
monetize. I think a lot of people are addicts for views. And I think that's a mistake. And they don't understand that until we can show them why it's a mistake, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you want views. Don't get me wrong, right? Like, I'm not ever telling people to try not to get views, but the goal should be to get an audience that is a part of your community and a supporter of yours. And I think Wealthy Creator is going to provide that for a lot of people. We will get so many testimonials, right, coming from people that will be empowered in what they're doing, become authority in their space, and put out really good content. So a goal of mine is to continue to just push that community and make that community really feel it too. Like I want the people that are involved to feel like this a real community.
100%. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. I think we have a lot of people on the back end. We're improving the content.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to crush that.
No, absolutely. Personally, for me, again, continuing just to brand who Justin Berry is, right? Like now I can say I'm going to keep working on my resume, making sure that you all are understanding from my social media who I am, what I represent, and what I'm trying to do. I have goals of getting better at communicating, right? Continuing to grow in that space, whether it's podcasting, whether it's on stage. It's funny, I was telling Brian Davila in the Wealthy Investor podcast that going with Ryan from, place to place and speaking engagement after speaking engagement allowed me to see a lot of the top talent out there, right? And watching the way that they can move a room has had a lot of impact on me and what I'm trying to do here, because it's an art and it's a skill that you have to develop. You have to get the reps in, you have to develop that. But seeing rooms move by people speaking words was like there's a lot of power in that. And so like I want to hone those skills and really get good at that part of it, and just continuing to grow the brand, man. Like, get eyeballs, get people bought in, having opportunities to speak on other stages is always a big move for me. I've been doing some outreach myself to people like, hey, look, I'm available. If you need anybody to speak on content, let me know.
Love it.
And then using, having the opportunity to do wealth cons in front of thousands of people is going to be big. So, you got to get those slides ready.
I know,
right?
But one thing that I will say about, when you do go on stage, you're authentic.
Yeah.
And people love like that aspect of it. Like sometimes when I go back, I'm like, who's your favorite speaker? It's like, oh, I love Justin. Justin was so good.
Yeah.
Because number one, you're knowledgeable on your topic and what you're talking about, but like you can tell that you're authentic in your words, and so you got good stuff coming.
No, dude, appreciate that. Appreciate that. So before we get out of here, tell me a little about if you are seeing any trends in business in general.
Trends. So we already talked about AI. Yep. I think that's huge. I think the trend for the last probably 12 to 15 years just in business, where these big companies getting a ton of funding for like whatever idea, right? So even you look at Uber still isn't profitable. Uber burns hundreds of millions of dollars every single year, and they just get outside funding to keep stoking the fire.
Yep.
Right. Bird, which was, do you remember the Bird scooters? Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So Bird was the fastest growing company to hit unicorn status, meaning I think it's $100 million in revenue.
Wow.
Was what that means. They're just got delisted from the stock exchange. They are like, their stock price is like literally not even worth putting on the stock exchange. That's how bad it is.
Wow.
Right. So, and the list goes on. There's all these companies that Silicon Valley just like threw money at and weren't profitable. And because their business model was get market share first, and then we'll worry about being profitable later.
Yeah.
Right. I think as we've seen with this downturn in the economy and just in general, business owners are focusing on the right things again, which is this a profitable business? Then we'll go invest in it, and then we'll go grow it. Right. So one success story is like ClickUp. So everyone knows who ClickUp is, but yeah, they grew up very, very quickly. And I'm not sure if they're profitable yet, but they're a lot more focused on that. Right. So I think for us as well, like internally, that's our big focus this year, because we did a slightly similar thing. We were still profitable. Don't get me wrong. And we've always been profitable every single year. Yeah. But we focused on getting really big this year. Right. So we, again, took advice from people. We paid big salaries. We brought in these agencies and stuff just to get, and we had one of our best years revenue wise. Yeah. But our take home wasn't as good as it usually is. Right. So a big shift for us is focused really on how can we make this grow really well, but also be very profitable too. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest shift that I'm seeing with other businesses, just like at a high level as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. No, let me set the stage for you.
Okay.
It's your floor. Tell everybody, if you got any final thoughts, any advice to the entrepreneurs and business owners that are watching, and then let them know where they can follow you and
Yeah.
support you.
I think if I can leave anybody with something, it's, put content out now. But no matter what you're doing, because again, it is your brand. It's what people are going to see. It's your resume, like we talked about. So no matter if you have the experience or if you don't, like, just document what you're doing, because you don't know who's watching. I think that's a really big thing too. I've met so many people like, oh, like I followed you for a long time. I've seen your content even from the TikTok days. I'm like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to come full circle. So I think that's extremely important. I think identify what you're good at and what you like doing, and then build a brand around that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of people, and myself included, ran into this issue recently where I was putting out content that was like Ryan's.
Yeah.
Right. And even the editing style now is still similar to Ryan's, but my content is more me and it's more like authentic. But there was like a small moment in time where I was just trying to be like Ryan. Right. So figure out like what you're good at and what your strengths are, and then put out content that's unique and authentic to you. And yeah, if you need a job, go to www.pinedaco.com. Go follow the Wealthy Business Podcast if you have any interest in business growth, scaling. We have some really, really good guests out there. And then me on all platforms, Javchav, JAVCHAV_. So thanks again, dude. This was so much fun.
No, it's fun, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it, man. It's been another episode of Wealthy Creator. I'm your host, Justin, and thank you again for coming. I can't wait to see you all at the next one. See you soon.
Peace.